Okay, good evening. Okay, so we are here tonight, 10 mistakes Jewish women make and how to fix them. And we are in session number 3 of 4 sessions. And so my number one concern about tonight is that I feel like I could keep you until midnight. I won't do that, but you have to keep me moving along. Don't let me get stuck too much on any one subject. And also, just some feedback I got. I tend to vacillate between Hebrew and English, and I'm not aware that I'm doing it. So if I start talking in Hebrew or I start saying words in Hebrew and you don't understand them, just raise your hand. I'm married to an Israeli, so I literally never know what language I'm talking. I'm like, I always switching back and forth. So please excuse me, I'm not doing it on purpose, and I don't take offense if you want to stop me and say like you're doing it again. Can you define that word? Can you say that word again? It's helpful for everyone, and also people on the recording, because not everybody who's listening understands the Hebrew lingo that I'm tossing out there. So don't be shy about stopping me. Okay, some housekeeping things. So I'm going to fill you in on a secret. When I give a shiur, when the shiur is over, I can't remember anything I said for the most part. Okay, I really just try to make myself like a channel of like whatever, I ask Hashem, please, that we should have Sata Dishmaya, and that whatever I say should come from my heart and go into your heart, and then I just let him go from wherever he needs to go from there. So what I do is I go back and I listen to my shiurim to see what did I say, how did I say it, and did I make any mistakes? So I found from the last shiur that I actually made a mistake that I want to correct, because it's very important for me to be accurate. And so last shiur, in whatever capacity, I was talking about Rav Zilberstein. I don't know if any of you remember. I was talking about Rav Zilberstein, and I was talking about a psak halacha that he brought from Rav Shach. Blah, blah, blah. It had to do with kashrut and everything. And I said that Rav Zilberstein is the son-in-law of Rav Kanievsky Zatzal. He's not the son-in-law. He is the brother-in-law. Rav Zilberstein is still alive, Baruch Hashem. Rav Kanievsky obviously has since passed. Zichrono livracha. And so I wanted to correct that they were brother-in-laws. And just as an added bonus, I brought one of my favorite photos that sits on my fireplace. And this is a picture of Rav Chaim Kanievsky and his brother-in-law, Rav Zilberstein. And they were incredibly close and incredibly fond of one another, and Rav Zilberstein spoke beautifully at the Levaya of Rav Kanievsky, so I wanted to just make that correction. We are approaching Tisha B'Av this week, Wednesday evening. It's a very long fast. I'm wishing all of you strength and koach with the fast. If you really tune in to Tisha B'Av, it can change you fundamentally at your core. I'm really hoping we're not going to have Tisha B'Av. I'm really hoping Hashem is going to grant us with Mashiach before Thursday, like even tonight. And that I really was feeling like last Tisha B'Av was going to be the last one. Like I was convinced it was going to be the last one. And I had like some fundamental internal feelings and shifts that went on. And between last year and this year, I really dedicated myself to growing and learning. And I want to encourage you to do the same thing. I want you to understand that when we have a shiur like this, when you take the time from your life to come and learn, whether that's online, whether it's in person, whether it's at home with a book, whether it's with a Rav, wherever and whenever it is, when you give your time and your energy and your focus to Torah, you're giving your time and your energy and focus to the Shekhinah. And it gives her koach. It gives her some nachat, some joy. And so I encourage all of you to continue on your journey, continue on your path to learn and to grow and to study this year and moving forward, and especially into Rosh Hashanah. I want to dedicate the shiur Le'ilui Nishmas Alfred ben Nisim and Regina, Seth ben Jody and Brian. And if any of you want to dedicate the learning to anyone, please, by all means, you can have them in mind. For Refuah Shlema, for Zivu Gaun, whatever it is that they need. And to say Lahakim Shechinta Ma'afra. This is to be able to really lift up the Shekhinah and give her the koach and wings that she needs to be in our times, which are very, very difficult. Someone asked a question last week about the animal soul. was that you? Okay, so the question was, when you eat an animal, does the soul of that animal ever come to you? You know, so I had my husband do some looking. He couldn't find anything that specifically said that. We've not yet found anything that specifically says that the soul of an animal that you're eating will come to you. However, it's widely recorded and known from the Gemara, from Kabbalah, from all sorts of sources, that people are reincarnated in animals. And that when you say as a punishment, that's obviously a downgrade, right? The worst would be like a rock at the bottom of the ocean. Right? That would be like really bad. And then you have all the other animals and the things that they go through. You know, it's very bad to be in a non-kosher animal. You have no chance of really being redeemed through any kind of a bracha. To be in a kosher animal, you have a chance to make your tikkun, because there's a chance that you'll be shechted in the right way and you'll be eaten, and someone will say the bracha before and the bracha after, and there you go. You've done your thing, you've made your tikkun, and you go up to hopefully Gan Eden. But there's nothing in particular to answer your question that says, yes, the soul of that animal will come to you, and so I didn't see anything like that. But to know there's a whole world going on with neshama, with souls and reincarnations and everything, and that very much does involve souls in animals and so forth. Okay, so that just is an answer. I want to read an email that I got in response to last week's shiur. In last week's shiur, I talked about the idea of kedusha, and I spent quite a bit of time talking about tzniut, and I think towards the end I got on a little bit of a tangent about men and women talking with each other and the socialization that we have that's the norm now in our culture, even the frum community. And I was kind of like poo-pooing that a little bit and saying like we kind of are crossing boundaries in places that we shouldn't. Even though it looks like everyone is doing it, doesn't mean that's what should be done, right? And I think that's a very good motto to understand, that when you're living a Torah life, even though it looks like everyone is doing it, that doesn't mean they're doing the right thing. So we always need to be leaders. I've talked about that. We have to be leaders. We have to be thought leaders. We have to be thinking, where are we? What are we doing? What are we participating in? How are we doing it? Because just because the flock is doing one thing doesn't mean that you should be with the flock, right? So I thought this was I have the best students in the world, I'll just say, that I thought this was a fantastic email, and kind of she was processing that she doesn't come physically, she listens online, she's not in LA. She started the email by saying, I listened intently to the 2 recent shiurim you emailed us and learned a lot from them. One thing does not make sense to me. Your insistence that a man should never look at a woman fails when a woman interacts with her rabbi or rabbis as teachers. Men who are rabbis at various levels of holiness, which of course we cannot judge, they teach and counsel women and congregants. They look at them and they talk to them. And Ruchi Fryer, the famous Orthodox female judge in New York, has much to do in terms of talking to and looking at men of all levels in society, including her male peers, and she is most decidedly frum. I just don't understand how any women who needs to work and shop and interact in the world can avoid interacting with men in the way that you describe. I have male physicians, chiropractors, a male dentist. They look at me and talk to me, and interact with me and even touch me if they're my doctor. 100% avoidance just doesn't seem humanly possible for most of us. My roofer and the guy who mows my lawn do not deserve for me to treat them in the way that you describe. Thanks for reading this and knowing that I truly value your teaching. It just is not computing for me in the real world. Fair letter, fair, completely fair. And I want to read you my response and then her response, because I think it's a super, super important point. Because I remember we were a little bit in a rush, and I was kind of like jumping on like a tiger on this subject, and I was being very strong. So it's great to be able to process it through a little bit more, okay? So here's my answer to her. How wonderful to hear from you. Thank you so much for reaching out. When I speak to groups and publicly, I need to speak in a way that emphasizes the concepts of boundaries, why we need a boundary, and I use extremes, quote unquote, so to speak, in order to highlight the consequences of not paying attention to boundaries. In my life, I am also interacting with men all the time. In fact, a life outside of Meir Sharim or Bnei Brak, it's almost impossible to not. We are not in any way forbidden to speak to men. In fact, I did not say that, by the way, for the record. I went back and I listened. I did not say at any point we're forbidden to speak to men, okay? And if you listen carefully, I don't believe I ever said that. However, when we do need to speak with men, as you say, a rabbi, a doctor, a service person, we as women need to be mindful about how we interact. We need to pay attention to our energy, that we are friendly, but not too friendly, smiley, but not flirty, kind, but not interested. Men read signals differently than women, and oftentimes what we feel is simple and normal is misinterpreted by men. This is particularly important as from women interacting in the world. We can be community members with men, but not familiar to or with them. So the only men or man in life that you are to be familiar with would be your husband, your father, your grandfather, your brothers. Not even your brothers-in-law. So there's a difference between being friendly and kind and familiar. Okay? For example, I highly doubt anyone dealing with Judge Fryer would ever misconstrue her energy or intentions in her role. Her energy is clear, grounded. She has very strong boundaries, both as a frum woman and as a judge. No one is messing with her for sure. You know who I'm talking about? You know who this judge is in New York? She's a totally frum lady, and she was elected to be, she's the judge. She sits on the bench. Hasidic lady, yeah. In today's world, unfortunately, not all rabbis are tzaddikim. And we also need to be aware of this. And even in those relationships, as we would in any other engagements with men, we need to be careful. So that was my response to her. And then she had a very brief response reply. I understand. Thank you so much. I understand exactly what you were saying. And then she went on to talk about her personal experience. And she says, now that you say that, I realize that I need to pull back my energy because it could be called too familiar, right? I have an old habit of being too familiar too fast, and now I'm realizing it's probably not appropriate. Thank you for tirelessly pouring out your love for Torah and Jewish women. Okay, so I think that it was very important to round out that subject. Yeah.
What about from the man's perspective for, like, let's say a Hebrew rabbi, for example? Like, they're not necessarily in control of, like, how girls are doing.
So I'll tell you something. I have my own personal opinion about the whole world of kiruv and rabbis' roles in it. And I have to be very, very careful about what I say, because there are some rabbis who are masters at understanding boundaries and how to swim in the seas of kiruv. Okay? There are some here in LA that are exceptional kiruv rabbis, and how they do it, it's just remarkable. But kiruv is playing with fire, plain and simple. You can ask any gadol, and they will tell you that it takes a very specific type of personality and character to withstand the tests that being a kiruv rabbi brings. So, first of all, no one should be doing kiruv, in my opinion, unless they're married, like solidly married. You know, this is a kiruv rabbi needs shmira. The shmira is the marriage; it's the wife. And she has to also understand the role and the interactions, you know. So that's a whole other lecture and a whole other conversation. But it's to be aware of. It's to be aware of. It's also to know that as a woman, if you're meeting with or dealing with a kiruv rabbi, that you also you have a responsibility in that relationship. You know, people who don't know, they don't know. You cannot, you know, hold something on that they don't know. But the rabbi has to know. If he's going to choose to be in the world of kiruv, he needs to understand. He needs to have a rav. He needs to be able to ask shelas. You know, I'm talking in Hebrew. He has to have a rabbi. He has to be able to have what they call da'as Torah, meaning like he needs to be able to say, I have this situation with this person, this woman, this man, and this is what I'm facing, and what should I do? And it needs to be a rabbi who's knowledgeable in halakha, knowledgeable even in some elements of psychology, and be able to guide the kiruv rabbi in everything that he's doing. The best kiruv rabbis that I know are rabbis that have rabbanim that are on greater levels than them, and they lean on them heavily for guidance, both on halakha and like the nuances of how to handle situations. Okay, so can I put that topic to rest? Yeah, no?
Can you just read the part of the email again where you said,
Yes, as women, we need to be mindful of how we interact. We need to pay attention to our energy, that we are friendly, but not too friendly. Smiley, but not flirty. There's a difference when someone comes and says hello to you, that you say, hello, as opposed to, hi, how's your day, No, I don't care how your day was, and I don't need to know how your day was. You're not my husband, I don't need to know. Okay? So, sorry, I get on my tangents. Emma knows me, she's used to my tangents. Also, late at night, my filter goes away, it's okay. When we feel it's, okay, so what I say? So, smiley, but not flirty. Kind, but not interested. Somebody needs help, you can be kind. Are you okay? Is everything okay? But not like you're interested now in learning their life story. Deal with the business at hand, whatever it is, and then move on. Unless you're single and he's single and he's cute. And then find out who he is and let's go. Okay? Jewish, of course. This is okay, so did I? Yeah, okay. Okay, fine. Good? Oh, yeah.
Or do you want to go ahead? Sorry.
Nope, go.
Okay, this is also for the people who are listening on the recording.
Yeah, on the record, but I have to talk loud so it picks you up on the.
Okay, so yes, it is a men's tiger, especially when a girl smiles at them, especially if they're married, so smiling at them. There's an issue now. I don't want to play devil's advocate, but when there's expectations, especially in the from Heimische society, where the men learn and the wife supports them while they're in Kola. And oftentimes, now that they want to get themselves into the situation, but because the women are working, they're more exposed to men.
It's a very big challenge.
Like, someone like touching, like I had a friend, like, yeah, there was a man like touching my butterfly tip off because it wasn't really so professional. There's women that are going to have to deal with that in order to support their husbands learning. How are women supposed to also protect themselves and have boundaries? There's a push. Women have to work in order for their husbands to be serious, not just for them. Where does the modesty come into place in places this, and where do the Rabbanim protect the women?
So, first of all, you have to be very selective about whatever environment is that you're choosing to work. This is the number one, that's like ground zero, is what is the environment? Who is working there? What is the culture of the place that they're working? That's why so many from women go into working in day schools and Jewish environments, because it's inherently going to be more conducive to their lifestyle and to the things that you're mentioning. But I think even just the way that I said that a kiruv rabbi needs a rav and has to have das Torah and ask questions and say, what's the best answer? What's the best thing for me? But before make a decision about what job to take, it's possibly one of the most important decisions you're going to make, because it's going to, next to your home, it's going to be the next most influential environment that you will be in. Right? So this also requires a sheila. This also requires a question from a rav, to have somebody really help you think through, what might I face? If I face it, how might I handle it? What will my exit strategy be if it's not working out? So those are not things that you need to handle on your own. It's important to find people who are more experienced, maybe even other women who have been in the workforce for 10 years or more, and you ask them, well, how did you do it? How are you handling it? If somebody makes an advance to you, it says something that's inappropriate, how do you address it? I just heard a story somewhere about something like that, about how a woman was eating lunch and some guy came and sat across from her, like to strike up a conversation. And her response to him was, I'm sorry, but in my culture, I don't speak with men other than my husband and my family. And that was it. And she just ignored him from that point forward. And he eventually got up and left. But it took strength for her to do that. She had to not be concerned about insulting him. She said it nicely. It wasn't like she was rude. But that's what it requires. It requires a certain degree of black and white, a certain degree of like, here's the line, this is my boundary, and we don't cross it. And be comfortable with that. So it's not easy. It's not an easy situation. The more that women are in the workforce and we're facing all this other stuff, it used to be in the 50s, the 40s and the 50s. Who were the ones doing all the cheating? The men. With the secretary, right? In today's world, if you look at the statistics of society, of who's cheating and divorce rates and why, it's half-half. It's equal. There's just as many women out there cheating as there are men, as far as sad as that is in the secular world. We have to be aware and very careful, Okay, we're good? Okay, I have to fly through these three because I'm like worried that we're not going to cover it. So here's what we're going to do. We have to cover today mistakes 5, 6, and 7, and then in the last one, 8, 9, and 10. So what were the first two mistakes? Who remembers?
We don't know who we are.
Yes, we don't know who we are, and number 2 was?
We don't understand why we're here.
And we don't know why we're here. Okay, so broad strokes, deep-seated questions. We don't know who we are. We don't know why we're here. I'm not going to answer the questions. You have it in your notes, or go listen to the recording for the first class. Okay, second class, we did mistakes 3 and 4. Who remembers what they were?
We don't choose Kedusha.
Yeah, right. We don't focus on Kedusha. We don't focus our lives on Kedusha was number 3. And number 4?
Shmira.
We don't focus on Shmira. Right? And I tied them together by saying, if you want to have Kedusha in your life, that cannot exist without Shmira. If you want to have holiness in your life, it cannot exist without guarding one's self, one's environment, one's home, right? And inherently a certain level of sacrifice. Because in order to have Kedusha, we have to choose certain things over other things. Make sense? Okay, so now, we're going to do mistake number 5, which I probably could spend like 5 weeks on, and I'm going to do it in like 5 minutes, all right? And then we're going to do number 6. Number 6 is going to be a deep dive, like workshop style mistake. So get your pens ready and journal. If you don't have them, they're back there, okay? And then number 7 is also a biggie, and I'm going to finish with number 7 to leave you thinking for the last session, okay? Fair enough? That's my game plan. Good? Okay, mistake number 5. You do not know and understand your challenger. You do not know and understand your challenger. Who is the challenger? Who is the challenger? The Yetzer Hara. Okay? So really this mistake is underestimating your opponent. Underestimating his prowess, his skill, his knowledge of you, his talents, the fact that he's been doing this for thousands of years and we've only been alive for a little blink of period of time, right? The fact that he knows our next 3 moves and he's already ahead of us, okay? So the idea of knowing your challenger, knowing and understanding the Yetzer Hara is key when it comes to really getting to know yourself and being able to make strides in your life. So let's talk for just a second. What exactly is the Yetzer Hara? Why did Hashem create his system with a challenge, a built-in challenger? I think I might have touched on it a little bit in the first class. But it's tied, the idea is that it's tied to free will. Right? In order for us to earn the light and the goodness that Hashem wants to share with us, we have to have tests to overcome. In order to have tests to overcome, we have to have something that challenges us. So we know that Hashem knows us. He knows all of our strengths and all of our weaknesses, but so does the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara's job, literally, it's the evil inclination and that specific drive within you that pulls you away from your purpose and whose job it is to make people sin. That is why he was created. His job is to help us forget who we are. So that whole first mistake that we did, we don't know who we are, that is literally the job of the Yetzer Hara. It's why he's here. You want to hear something freaky that they write about in Kabbalah? They talk about the idea that the Yetzer Hara, when a woman is about to give birth, right, and the baby is just about to come out, the Yetzer Hara for that soul stands at the outside of the birth, when the baby's about to come out, stands there, and when the baby comes out and takes his first breath, he jumps in. That's it. Welcome to the world. Game on. And that is your curriculum. It comes pre-programmed into you with your own personal Yetzer Hara that's going to challenge you every step of the way once you reach bar and bat mitzvah age. And then, of course, age 20 is when you're fully accountable for everything. So the whole idea of Yetzer Hara is we think of him, he must be such a bad guy, right? Because all he wants to do is trip us up and make us fail and make us sin and pull us away from knowing who we are and accomplishing. But the reality is that without him, you wouldn't really get very far. Because without the tests that he brings, you're really not going to be able to accomplish. You wouldn't struggle. You wouldn't be able to earn anything. Everything would just come. So what's the point? What's the point of free will even if you don't have challenges? So this is a book by Akiva Tatz called Will, Freedom, and Destiny. Free Will in Judaism. And I just want to read from here because it's fantastic. It says here, why does the word for ordeal in Hebrew nisayon, is like a test, contain the element of the miraculous word nes? Nisayon contains the word nes, miracle. What part of an ordeal or a challenge is miraculous? If a test is pitched within the capacity of the one being tested, success cannot be regarded as miraculous, no matter how difficult the test may be. And if the test is pitched above that person's level, then surely the only result can be his failure. So it's basically saying, if you're getting a challenge within your scope and your limitation, what kind of a challenge is it? But if you're giving a challenge way above your head, well, then you're sure to fail. Rambam explains that the tests of the righteous are not for the purpose of revealing the capacity of those righteous individuals to God, but for revealing your capacity to the world. God already knows what you're capable of. He made you. The challenges that you have are to reveal your own personal capacity to yourself and to the world. When a great person overcomes a fearsome ordeal, he becomes a spiritual teacher. How many people you know were addicts and now they're drug counselors? You ever heard of that? That's like a thing in the whole counseling world. You had a difficult childhood, you become a therapist for children. You had a difficult divorce, you become a divorce counselor. Your challenge that you went through, that you earned, whatever success you met with, becomes now something that you are teaching and counseling others. It's very, very common. If you start paying attention in the world, people around you, you'll see much of our choices are built upon things we've overcome in the past. Rambam brings out another aspect. When an individual is tested and succeeds, he is not revealing his capacity for greatness to God or primarily to the world. He is revealing it to himself, which is what I just said. God knows what the individual can achieve, and indeed he will achieve. But the individual does not know what he's capable of achieving. And so it's written, and Rambam brings, that Hashem will never, ever bring you a test that you cannot pass. It means that no matter how bleak the challenge looks, no matter how strong your Yetzer Hara seems, you have inherently the capability to win. Because Hashem will only bring you challenges that He knows you have the capacity to be successful with. It's hard to see that in the moment when we're going through those challenges, because sometimes we feel like we're drowning. But if we can connect ourselves to this concept and hang on to it like a life jacket, like a buoy, and know that when we feel like we're just about to go under, that there's no way that we can't find a solution or the koach, the strength to overcome, because Hashem put it inside of us already. The cure is there before the challenge. Neither of these approaches shows what a miracle is about challenges. Whether a test reveals greatness publicly or to the world or privately to the one undergoing it, there does not appear to be anything miraculous in it. A previously unrecognized level of character is now being revealed. But if that level was always inherent in the subject, then it would seem that there's no miracle in simply revealing what was previously hidden. But what he says is the miracle is that the test does far more than reveal a hidden quality or ability. It creates that quality. And in that is the miracle. Meaning when you go through a situation, when you face a challenge that the Yetzer Hara, the challenge is bringing to you, and you overcome, you succeed, you have now built within yourself a new level of equality, a new level of capacity. And in that is the ness, in that is the miracle. That you now have something you didn't have before. You now have something that you can rely on for your entire rest of your days. So I thought that's pretty fantastic. So it gives us a look at the connection between the Yetzer Hara, the inherent challenges that we must face. They're not optional. We have to face the challenges in order to grow. And how that's tied to free will, and the fact that Hashem has already gifted us with whatever we need to overcome. We just have to find it. We have to find it within ourselves. And then we reveal those capacities to the world and to ourselves. Make sense?
So rather than shaking your foundation, even though it shakes your foundation, by doing a better thing or taking the higher road, you're establishing that, you're strengthening that foundation.
Right.
For next time.
That's exactly right. Or maybe you're even building an entirely new foundation depending on how strong the shake is. You know? When you buy a house, you can either fix it up or you can knock it down and rebuild it completely. Right? It's the same thing with us. When we face challenges, depending, maybe something is a little bit of a challenge, so we make minor adjustments and corrections, or maybe it's really a life-shaking, earth-shattering challenge. You know, and that the Hashem breaks our vessel in order for us to rebuild it in a much bigger and stronger way. So it's important to understand that this is a daily event. These are daily events, all these little challenges. You know, it says that even the most minor inconvenience is planned by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I'll give you an example. I learned this a while back, so I pay attention to the small details, okay? I was opening a little bottle of like Neosporin, or something, like a little tube of Neosporin. You know, they have those tiny little caps that are sometimes annoying to like put on and take off, right? And I was standing next to my bed, and I opened the cap, and the cap fell. And before I even looked down, I was like, oh, could you please just make this an easy and convenient? Don't make me get down on my knees and have to reach under my bed. Like, have I been not nice lately? What is it? So I said, please just make it like right at my feet. I just have to reach down and get it. And I looked down, and there it was. I said, thank you. You know, and I pay attention now to those very little details, because it could have literally gone all the way under the bed, and now I got to go get the broom, I've got to go down on my knees, I've got to try to get it out from underneath the bed, and then it becomes like a thing, you know? So that is an event now. Not a big event, but an event nonetheless, an annoyance. And it says, it's written that every little annoyance like that, when you can't find a parking spot, you know, those are little annoyances. Those are all little kaparot. Those are all little, how do you say kapara in English? Those are all little atonements. Perfect, thank you. Those are all little atonements for things we might have done. Maybe we didn't speak so nice to somebody, so Hashem's like, you know what, you can do 5 minutes around the block looking for parking. Right? We don't know what the connections are, but there is for sure a connection. Anytime we feel annoyed and inconvenienced, it's for sure a direct result of something else that happened in our life. Okay? Okay. Without going deeper, because I don't want to, you know, I want to get to everything. Does everyone have like an idea now of the fact that when we make a mistake, when we don't know who our challenger is, when we don't recognize the strength of our challenger, and when we don't pay attention, that we each have our own personal Yetzer Hara that's trying to trip us up, but that Hashem has already gifted us with the solutions to whatever it is that we're facing, and we just need to reveal it. And then from there, build stronger. Okay? Good? Okay, here we go. Mistake number 6, and we're going to do this, is going to be an exercise. Okay? You're going to take a few minutes, you're going to write, and I would love if anyone wanted to talk it out. It could be fun, but it's a little bit personal, so I understand if you don't want to, but I think it could be fun. Mistake number 6. We do not live with the end in mind. We do not live with the end in mind. Okay? So, instead of explaining what I mean, I'm going to present you with 3 questions. All right? And there's no way you're going to be able to do it all here together in the class, but I want you to write down the 3 questions, and we'll work a little bit together. Maybe we'll chat it out. But I really, really do want you to go home, and I want you to answer these questions. Okay? Homework. All right? Question number 1. What will your headstone say in 120 years?
What will what?
Your headstone, your tombstone, say in 120 years. What will it say? Number 2. You can look at this in one of 2 ways. You can choose which one. Either, what will people speak about you, again, in 120 years, BzH Hashem, what will people speak about you at your levaya? And or, what would be written in your obituary? Everybody knows what is an obituary? That's when someone passes away, there's usually some type of an announcement in the newspaper, and it says a few words about the person. And levaya, this? I think he wants this. And a levaya is when people speak about the deceased at the actual funeral before they're taken to be buried. You know, there's usually people saying, what is it in English again? It's
Eulogy.
eulogy. Yeah. Okay. So that's number 2. Question 2. Okay. Question number 3, and this is a tough one. How will you be welcomed in Shamayim, in the heavens? When your soul leaves your body, BzH Hashem, 120 years, how will you be welcomed? I don't know how you interpret it. We know from the writings, okay? We know. And also, there's countless people who have had, like, let's say, near-death experiences, and they've all reported similar type stuff. We know that there's a Beis Din, a court. We know that all of us have to go in front of it. We know that there's a different court depending on the generation. Every generation is judged within the context of their own generation, because it wouldn't be fair to judge, you know, there's a yirida, there's a reduction in the level of each generation, right? So the generations now, our generations, as we get closer and closer to Mashiach, are said to be what would be the lowest generations in comparison to all the righteous tzaddikim that have come before us. We know that we're going to be asked certain questions. Were you honest in business? Did you study Torah? There's a whole list of questions that we know that we're going to be asked. We're going to be asked our Hebrew name, which is not our Hebrew name that our parents gave us. It's actually a special Hebrew name that you find in the siddur, in the back of the Siddur. And it has to do with the first letter of your Hebrew name and the last letter of your Hebrew name. If you want to know more about that, you can. I don't want to get into that now, but it's in the most Siddurim. It's different for Ashkenazim and Sfardim. We know that our entire lives will play out before us in seconds, if even that. Just instantaneously, we will literally see from our first breath to our last breath. We know that we will be questioned about various actions and activities, and if we deny anything, they're going to show it to us, right? And say, oh really? You didn't do that? But what's this over here? Right? We know that there is a heaven, and we know that there is Gehenna, which is hell. We know that there are multiple levels in each, and we don't know where we'll go. We know that there's people that don't get into either place, and they're just waiting at the gates. This is all written, right? So when we say, how will we be welcomed in Shamayim? Will we be greeted by our ancestors and tzaddikim that we honored while we were here in life, and people that we did mitzvot for that we may not even realize we did mitzvot for because we're kind and do chesed? Or were we a rasha, chas v'shalom, lahavdil, and we didn't do nice things and we didn't do kind things, and we're going to wind up seeing all the ugliness of the things that we did, God forbid, right? So when you think about how will I be welcomed in Shamayim, you have to ask yourself, it's the sum of all the qualities of goodness and badness for your whole entire life. And it talks about, of course, the scale, where all of our mitzvot will go on a scale. And chas v'shalom, whatever the opposite of that is, will go on a scale. Now, people tend to think, oh, well, the scale is like that, and it's 10, it's 10 minus 5, so it's 15, so the good stuff wins. From what I've read and what I've learned, it doesn't work like that. Hashem does not deduct one from the other. It's a completely different calculation of mitzvot and averos chas v'shalom. So it has to do with the quality of your mitzvot. Everything comes into measure, right? And it's all happening like there's no time. You're out of your body, there's no time. It's just all happening from what people describe. So when we think about it, we say, what will we be seeing? Right? So, I'm curious, has anyone ever thought about this before?
All the time.
Yeah? And so what does it bring you to think about this kind of stuff?
I actually have a personal, I don't mean it in any disrespect, but
Please.
Like when people say about the headstone, I wonder if it could be rephrased more of what's your legacy.
You can, for sure you can.
I think it just is like too raw for our parents to even think that we're thinking this way, if they're alive, God willing. And so and then I think a lot about how visible we are to our ancestors, and how visible, from silly things like if I say something bad about my frizzy hair, maybe that's my great-great-grandma's hair, and she gets hurt that I don't like the hair that I inherited. Or, things that are more serious, like my great-grandma became a widow at 20, and her life was so difficult, and yet she was always so put together and classy, and where did she find that strength? So I think about that a lot, and then I think also about how thinking so much about that keeps me from my present responsibilities, and then oftentimes the overwhelming aspect of what you should be doing, but then, for example, not davening, because I say every day, okay, I'm gonna daven more, or at least mincha, or at least this, and then the day ends, and
You're not the only one.
And then I think that davening brings me so much joy. Why am I?
Yeah.
And so.
But that's the Yetzer Hara.
Yes.
He's just doing his job.
Allegedly, indeed, that's something that's pulling me away, and not my own disrespect of Hashem, God forbid.
Right.
And then I think also about how there's this joke, like with 3 wishes, and your 3rd wish is I want to, look at my great-great-grandchild getting married while we're girls, holding the hand of my alive and healthy husband, when you lump everything into one. And so I think it's a fun activity when you look at it from what you can achieve and how much our decisions can lead to healthy families and what we can teach our kids. And then certain ways it's very individual, I should be able to do better for myself because of all the things God gave me.
So I love everything you said. Thank you very much for sharing, and I welcome anyone else to share too. And I want to point out one of the most unbelievable gifts of the Yetzer Hara. He's so good at it. He's so good at it. Is that he knows how to take what should be a growth opportunity and turn it into a self-beating opportunity. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the idea that you have a desire, let's say you said, I want to daven more. I want to add more davening to my day, right? So that's a tremendous desire to want to have that. It's very admirable to want to have that desire, right? But he knows how to get in there and make you be like, yeah, but you're not doing it. You're not. You're really not so great. Because you're failing. You're not doing that, right? That's the Yetzer Hara. The voice that comes in on the tail of your desire when you have a good intention to want to achieve and accomplish, to tell you how wonderful you're doing at not doing what you want to do, that's the Yetzer Hara. And that part you have to silence. You have to call him out on his nonsense and be like, I know who you are. I'm doing the best I can right now, and I'm going to keep pushing forward, and I don't need you telling me how good or bad I'm doing. So you have to, it's a very fine line to know when the Yetzer Hara is getting in there and, just kind of needling you a little bit and getting it. So anything that is pushing you towards growth and positivity and closer to Hashem, you know that you're in the right energy space. Anything that is making you feel horribly guilty or like you're failing and you're a failure and you're terrible and you're this and you're that and you're the other thing, this is the Yetzer Hara. So try to delineate between those things so that you don't get caught in his web. Because that's what he loves to do. Is he loves to make you feel like, all your efforts are not good enough, Anyone else want to share? Yeah.
Does that affect what you said, being hard?
Right. That's right. Okay. So the question was, does that apply about being hard on yourself? Say it again. Say that.
It's different than like beating yourself up. Oh, listen, when I go to the world level, like, what about even putting spirituality with it? Just you're hard on yourself. You could like learn more confidence.
Listen, it's you cannot grow without reflection and self-evaluation. Those are essential keys to growth, because if you don't step back and evaluate yourself, but the difference between doing a fair and accurate assessment about how you're doing versus, like you say, beating yourself up is the difference between being on a sound, spiritual, healthy path versus being totally caught up in the Yetzer Hara telling you, the whole idea of perfectionism, being a perfectionist, it's really the work of the Yetzer Hara. Nobody's perfect. No one. If you're here on this planet breathing, you're not perfect. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. You'd be sitting in Gan Eden enjoying all of Hashem's light. So no one is perfect. So any element of perfectionism is totally tied to the work of the Yetzer Hara. Sometimes we don't accomplish anything because all we want to do is have something be perfect. And it's not, have you ever experienced that? You start it and then you start again and again and again and again because it's never good enough. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Is guilt from the Yetzer Hara?
It can be. It absolutely can be. Guilt can serve it can serve in a positive way as a flag for you to know that perhaps you didn't behave in the right way or you didn't make the right choice, right? Like it's as a flag. But the second that it starts to be like weighing on you, it's not serving any purpose anymore. If you use it as an informative tool, it's good. But anything beyond that, or you walk around feeling like, oh my God, I should have, no, that's not good and it's not healthy, doesn't serve. Make sense? Okay, all right, so this activity, this whole idea of really living with the end in mind, I have, something that I think about. I think about how I want to be received in Shamayim. I think about that a lot. I think about what do I need to do in this world? What imprint do I need to make? What actions do I need to take? What thoughts do I need to have so that when I, in 120 years, go into Shamayim, I want the red carpet and the parade, and I want like balloons and streamers and happy faces and people greeting me, and they're excited that I'm there. You know what I'm saying? I'm making it simplistic. It's much more detailed in my head. But I'm not going to share that on recording and in public, okay? But, there's like a whole scene I have going on. And, I want it to be something that I've earned a warm welcoming in Shemayim. I think about that, and even more so to be warmly welcomed in this world, right? If you can achieve being warmly welcomed in this world, you have a fairly good chance of being warmly welcomed in the next. Because it means that if you're living according, of course, to Torah and that, so move yourself in that direction and think about it. Something I learned with my father-in-law, Zichrono Livracha, that when he passed in January, something I had no idea, I didn't know, is that when you're creating the writing for somebody's kever, for their grave, for the stone that goes on the grave, evidently in Shemayim they read it, and they not just read it, they judge it. So they say that you cannot exaggerate on somebody's tombstone, because if you put something about the person that's not really true, like let's say you make them sound better than what they really were, they read that and they look at the soul that's being judged and they say, you did that? You were like that? Show me. And they bring all the pictures and all the actions and all that. Where? Show me where. Where were you so charitable? I see you gave $5 when you were 15 years old. Where else were you charitable? And on his gravestone it says, the biggest tzedakah giver, and da-da-da-da. It's really a thing that you have to be very, very careful about what you write on there. It has to be accurate. It has to be the emes. Because, No, we don't write it, but we have to let our family know, right? We have to say, don't exaggerate. Don't exaggerate. Because the soul is held accountable for what gets put on. I was shocked. That was like a whole new thing for me to learn about that. But it just goes to show you that the relationship between our world and there, it's all happening together. Yes?
So I just don't understand what you said when you said, I just want to.
Please.
The part where you said that if you're accepted in this world, then you're most likely to be accepted in the next world.
I'm kind of speaking generally. What I mean by that is that let's say you've been someone who's been very kind and giving and generous, and you're living according to Torah, so that your life is built upon masim, good deeds and tzedakah and chesed, and you're always looking to do things for other people, and you're active in the community, and you're obviously Hashem has his calculations about living according to the Torah lives and this and that. But if you're doing all those things, it means you're banking all those mitzvot in Shemayim. Right? All of that stuff that you're doing is building your olam haba. So when I make a comment like that, I'm really speaking generally to say that if you've been living your life according to these primary and fundamental principles of Torah and Judaism, so that can only go well for you in Shemayim. Right? That can only reward you in the world to come. Because all of that everything is noted, everything is accounted for.
But isn't your kavana while doing all of those things a very big part of it as well?
Yes.
You can't just do it and say I did.
Correct. So that's why I was saying that when all of those things go on the scale, it's not so simple, because what they do is they take every single mitzvah and they say, oh, here you helped the lady to carry her groceries up the stairs, but the whole time you were mumbling under your breath that you were late and you were aggravated and annoyed. So they literally measure the quality of the mitzvah.
Yeah.
So you did it, and you get points for doing it, right? But how much did you give when you were giving that mitzvah? When you gave a donation, was it like killing you to part with the money, or you were like happy to give it? And with an open heart and an open hand. Those mitzvahs won't weigh the same.
Or even helping another lady, but not helping your own grandma.
Yeah, exactly, right. They say it's much easier to help a stranger than it is to help our own family members. Right? Because we come with baggage and background story with our own relatives. Okay, so you understand that activity and the purpose of that activity. Yes? If you really sit with it and you give yourself the space and the time to think about those things, and then from there begin to map out the kind of life you want to lead. Map out what you want your foundational pillars to be, the essence of who you want to be. And that's where you lead from. in your life journey. Make sense? So that in the end, you are going to actually reach where you're envisioning you want to be. Yes?
Can you repeat it? The essence who you want to be.
The essence, so when you're thinking with the end in mind, and you're thinking about all the things you wish to accomplish and how you want to be viewed in, let's say, in heaven, right? You know, you want Hashem to be proud of you. So look and see, who do you need to become? What does your essence need to be? How do you need to be living your life? By what guidebook? You know, what would be your guidebook for living to accomplish that? Okay, all right, I want to move on. Okay, last one, number 7 for the night. How are we doing? Not bad. Number 7, we live in denial of the reality of Hashem. We live in the denial of the reality of Hashem, meaning it can oftentimes, because we're in the physical world and Hashem is hidden from us, it's very easy to kind of talk about this idea of God and Hashem and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but not really let it sink in that God knows everything inside and out. Your thoughts, your actions, your speech, your interactions, the things you do at home when no one's there with you. He knows everything. So that is the foundational concept behind the idea of Yiras Shamayim. Has everyone heard of that term before? Yiras Shamayim is having the awe and the awareness that God is real and God is with us even when we don't feel Him, even when we don't think He is. And I want to read for you to bring 2 sources on this one point because it's so important. So this is straight out of Pirkei Avos, Perek Bet. Okay? It says, Ayin ro'ah ve'ozen shoma'at ve'chol ma'asecha besefer nichtavim. Know what is above you, an eye that sees, an ear that hears, and know that all of your deeds are recorded in a book. That is straight out of Pirkei Avos. And Rambam goes on to talk more about it, and he says it is explicitly stated in the Torah that our deeds are known by Him, Hashem, in the unique manner in which He knows them, meaning He knows the deepest recesses of our minds, our hearts, our intentions. There's no fooling Hashem. We can fool ourselves, we can fool other people, but we cannot fool HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the faster we embrace this idea and really have this become a reality in our lives, the more we can begin to live with authenticity and reveal the greater part of ourselves. Because we know that we are never ever alone and that Hashem is watching us, not even in a punitive way watching us. It's not like He's looking to catch us doing something wrong. He loves us. We are His children. He wants to see what we're doing. He wants to know what we're doing. He created us. He wants to see us succeed. So He's keeping tabs on us the same way a mom keeps tabs on her kids or a dad keeps tabs on his kids. Okay, it's the same kind of concept. Okay. This is in Orchos Yosher from Rav Chaim Kanievsky, and it talks about the idea of fear of heaven and understanding how much Hashem is intricately involved in our lives. Rava said, when they bring a person in for his heavenly judgment after death, the heavenly tribunal asks him, did you conduct your business transactions honestly? Did you set aside fixed times for Torah study? Did you engage in building a family? Did you wait in the hope of salvation? Meaning, did you wait for Mashiach? Actively wait for Mashiach? Did you delve into wisdom? Did you seek out Torah knowledge? But even if he has done all of this, if fear of God was the person's storehouse, meaning even if he did all of this, but he was not Yirei Shamayim, meaning he did not have awe of God, then it's almost as if it doesn't matter, right? If he had Yiras Shamayim, if the person did these things and he had fear of Hashem and awe of Hashem and awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then it means that there will be a favorable judgment just based on this aspect. But if you're walking in the world, even like you said, you're doing mitzvot, but you're not thinking about them, you're not aware of whatever, and you don't have fear of Hashem, it's not a good outcome. We have to develop our awe of Hashem and our desire to be connected with Him. Yes?
The things that they ask your children.
Yes. And again, you have to remember that most of this is written with men in mind, because when they ask, did you engage in building a family? Actually, I shouldn't say that. I think when they say engage in building a family, they're really talking about pru'urvu, but it also is relevant to women, because women have the primary responsibility of raising the children. Did you conduct your business transactions honestly? Did you set aside fixed times for Torah study? Did you engage in building a family? Did you wait in hope for salvation? Which means, like I said, did you actively wait for Mashiach? Did you delve into wisdom, the desire to know more? And they said, About God, about His Torah, about His creation, about all those things. Actually, there's one that I skipped when I read it the first time. Did you learn Torah deeply and infer one thing from another? That's one of the things that I understand when men study and they're looking at all the different Gemarot and all the different things, that the idea that you can understand one thing from another, and that becomes the addiction of studying Torah, is the idea that you look at men who are 90, 100 years old, and they spent their whole life studying Torah, and they're as sharp can be. Because studying Torah in this kind of way in which you look in all the books and you look for different sources and you make connections here and connections there, it keeps the mind so sharp. If you look at an average 90-year-old who's been studying Torah all their lives versus an average 90-year-old who hasn't, there's no comparison. The men who were studying Torah their whole lives are sharp. They're mentally all there. And then it goes on to say, but even if he has done all this, it talks about the importance of Yiras Shamayim. That you have to do these things with Yiras Shamayim. It's not enough to just do the action. You have to do it with the awareness of Hashem. That's why you're doing it. You're doing it because you have Yiras Shamayim and you know this is Hashem's creation. You want to be a part of it in the highest levels. Make sense? Okay. So, in recap, number 5 was know your challenger. Don't underestimate your challenger, but understand that Hashem designed you with the ability to overcome whatever challenges are in your life. You may need to look for help, resources, guidance, da'as Torah, ask a question, go to a Rav, whatever you need to do, but you have it within you to overcome. Number 6, make sure you're living your life with the end in mind. Make a path for yourself, make a guidebook for yourself. What are your guiding lights? What are the things that are going to get you to the end of your life, in 120 years, that people will be saying about you what you wish they will be saying about you? Okay? And number 7 is that to really focus in on the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The reality, not the idea of Hashem, that He's somewhere up there on a chair and all the things that we read. That He's here now. With us, with you, driving home, walking down the street, going to work, making dinner, doing laundry, whatever you're doing, He's with you. You can speak to Him out loud in your mind. Which, by the way, let me tell you something about the Yetzer Hara. Very important. You ever heard the saying, Al tiftach pe le-satan? Al tiftach pe, don't open your mouth to the Satan. To the Samach Man, to the Yetzer Hara, to the Satan. So why do they say that? Anything that is hidden, the Satan cannot be aware of. He cannot read thoughts. He doesn't have the permission to read somebody's thoughts. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you can speak with Him in your mind. He knows everything going on in there. Okay? The second something becomes revealed through speech or through the written word, meaning it's now out in the public domain. It's made noise through your vocal cords have come out, sound has come out, it's been revealed, or on paper, he's aware. So if you have big plans, you've heard people say, oh, shh, don't talk about it, don't talk about it, don't talk about it, keep it to yourself. That's why. Because if you're planning something big or something good or a big move or something exciting, the more you talk about it, the more you are giving him rights to put himself there. So if you really want something to come out with a bang, talk to as few people about it as possible. Somebody knows you're planning a wedding, fantastic. Plan a wedding, don't tell anyone the details. Just the people that need to know, tell them the details. Don't be chitty-chatty about every little thing. Protect those things that are important to you. The less you speak about it, the less you put it out there, the less he has access to it. Does that make sense? That's just a little tip and trick of the trade. Yeah.
So should you not speak out loud to Hashem?
You totally can speak out loud to Hashem, and you absolutely can. He's not gonna, if you are in a conversation with a Kadosh Baruch Hu, so the Yetzer Hara might be able to hear you, but you're talking to Hashem, I don't know what you'll talk about, but anything that's outwardly, he hears. Just be aware of that, Anything that's in your mind, he doesn't know. He doesn't know about. That's why when there's a lot of things of like a lot of women when they're pregnant, B'ezrat Hashem, they don't talk about it, right? Suddenly you'll just see somebody and all of a sudden they're like 5-6 months pregnant and you had no idea. That's why they say there's a whole thing about don't talk about it. Just don't talk about it. You tell your parents, your siblings, your close friends, fine. But you're not making a community-wide announcement about it. You live your life and you do your thing, even anything, a new job and whatever. I just announced a new job here, but I did it for a purpose of that new job, for those of you who missed it. But anyway, but my point is that actually it is a good example because there was all kinds of behind-the-scenes stuff going on about that new job before it came public. It didn't come public till it was a done deal. So for those of you who missed it at the beginning, I was saying that I was asked to act as principal of a school, a Jewish day school here in the Valley, and I accepted as interim principal. But nobody knew at all until it was done and it went public, and it was all behind the scenes. And that's really how things should be done. Anything that's important to you, you should keep it as quiet as possible until everything is tied up and finished. Does that make sense? Okay, questions? Yes?
When you said Satani just now, was that interchangeable with the Yetzer Hara? So even though the Yetzer Hara is part of us?
Yes. So okay, I hope I'm not going to make any mistakes here when I say this. If I do, I'll correct them next week. My understanding is he basically has 3 primary roles. One is the Yetzer Hara. The other is, one is the Yetzer Hara. The other is, he is responsible when people's time is up. That's his job, is to go and get them. And then, thank you. And then the third thing is, Yetzer Hara, why am I not remembering? There's a third thing. I will look it up for you. But basically, it's the same angel that plays multiple roles. And that's kind of all under his domain. Okay, any other questions? Yes?
So I understand the role of the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, but in this case of you say things that are good happening in your life, the Satan being able to get in there and turn it into quote unquote bad, what's the purpose?
Or maybe just try to trip you up, not so much, listen, if you are, let's say you're progressing in your levels of observance or you're doing whatever, so his job is to try to make you not do that. So he's going to try to get in and make it hard for you or whatever. I already know now his tricks with me and what he does. I already know before Pesach my cleaning help will be sick. I understand that is what's going to happen. It has been 3 years running. I am expecting next year it will be the same. If it is not, that will be wonderful, but I already expect it. And then I end up having to do everything myself unless my daughters are able to help me. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Like, let's say I'm excited and I'm planning for Pesach and people are coming and whatever, and then the help that I want to hire is no longer available to me the week before I need to, so that's the kind of stuff. So that kind of thing, like let's say the first time it happened to me, I was not talking like I'm talking now. I was not a happy camper. I was not someone you could speak to for like 48 hours. But then after it kept happening, I'm like, oh, that's what it is. So then I just decided I'm not going to give it to him. It is what it is. Like, I can't, But he gets in there. He just tries. He just tries to get you to get angry, get you to miss something, because that's what he's supposed to do, Does that make sense? That's why he's so good at what he does, because we can't necessarily know what he's going to do or how. Could be something super subtle. Someone could just make a side comment to us that totally triggers us. He uses people, whispers something in their ear so that they say it to you. Or your kids. You happen to have a conference call for work, and your kid is homesick, and in the moment that your boss is going to be on the Zoom, they're going to be running around naked in the back, screaming their heads off. That's just going to happen. How many times do you think it happened during COVID? Probably 1 million. Everybody's home, their kids are crazy, and the Satan's having a heyday, because he's embarrassing everyone, making everyone upset. It's what it is, Okay, what else? Any other questions? Yeah, okay.
So in this scenario, you could be buttoned up, and everyone around you could be buttoned up, but then there's a weaker link in in the network. So then that weaker link can start triggering everybody, even though everyone's so buttoned up and so on it. But then it can come out of
You can?
field, and then the whole.
Because he'll go where he can. He'll enter where he can enter. Always the back door. That's the joke about him. The joke is that he likes to come in the back door, meaning he'll pick something super benign that doesn't seem like such a big deal, and you just let it slide. So now he has an entree. And he knows, he's smart. He doesn't just come boom with the hammer and the biggest, hardest thing. He's little by little by little by little until he chips away at your patience or whatever it is, That's how it goes. Okay, so I just want to remind you, next week will be session 4 of 4, BzH Hashem. It will be the last 3 mistakes. And God willing, I'll record it. Try to get this recording up. If you haven't listened to the first 2 lectures, you can find them on the YouTube channel. By the way, also, you can. I don't have any other way to follow me other than subscribing to the YouTube. So if you're not on my email list, the only other way to get the lectures is on the YouTube thing. So just tell me. Just give me your email. I'll put it on there. So that will be, and then that's probably going to be the last time I'm lecturing for a little while, because I'll be very, very busy in August. And then we'll see. I was thinking maybe for Elul, I'm going to talk with Liat. Instead of doing a series, because I don't think I'll have the time to do that, maybe to do a workshop, like in one evening workshop where we'll really do Rosh Hashanah prep. But let's see what the calendar looks like for Shuvah and what space is available. And sound good? Okay, excellent. Have an amazing week. BzH Hashem, we'll see you next week.